What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on nootropics, on testosterone, on using anything that we have available to us to make us perform and feel and function awesomely. Thanks for watching. Going to talk about testosterone and when it gets too high and how crappy it can actually be. I'm sure some of you never thought that I would say this, or that there's like, you can just take your test to as high as possible and feel like a god, and it's just not how it's sort of glorified. Yes, high testosterone is definitely something you want to shoot for. You're going to build more muscle, you're going to burn fat easier, you're going to stay lean easier. If there's nothing else really wacky going on, like uber high prolactin, your erections are going to get better, your sex drive is going to go through the roof, you're going to have a lot of fucking confidence, you're going to sleep great, feel great, you'll have a lot of energy, you'll want to conquer things. All those are great things with raising high tests, but there are downsides, and I want to talk about that and kind of open up the discussion about, there's a sweet spot for testosterone too. In the meantime, what supports this broadcast is two epic nootropic products. Number one, the Cortex Nootropic Stack. Link is in the description below. Number two, the Torque Nootropic Stack. Link is also in the description below, and I will explain those two at the end of this video. Okay, the downsides of super high testosterone. So such a thing does exist, as I explained. Shooting for high test is good, but usually when you're using either testosterone replacement, like, full-on injectable testosterone or TRT, or you're using HCG, which is human chorionic gonadotropin. It's basically an LH-FSH receptor agonist intratesticularly, which will make you make more of your own testosterone, not from the hypothalamus' point of view, and the anterior pituitary's point of view with your own LH and FSH, which is how you typically make testosterone, but through a replacement agonist called HCG, or Clomid, which is a SERM, or a selective estrogen receptor modulator in the hypothalamus, and that makes you pump out your own LH and FSH, and therefore you make more testosterone. Those are the primary instances in which you can run into high testosterone side effects, right? Because it's much more powerful than a natural protocol. That isn't to say that a natural protocol can't give you high testosterone side effects, because it can, but most natural protocols are not comprehensive enough to do that. That's why I created Ryan's Natty protocol, which is in the testosterone superclass. That is a natural protocol that for most folks will dramatically raise testosterone, and if it gets too high, it's going to give you side effects. So let's talk about those side effects, and I want to explain that through a client situation. All right, so here's a man that was on testosterone replacement therapy. We were working with nootropics, and a few really negative things started to happen that, of course, from my perspective, I wanted to adjust the nootropic stacks to see if, I didn't really think that they were causing these issues, but like if we could adjust the nootropic stacks, would this take away from some of these side effects? And it turned out they really didn't, and the only other thing in this person's life was testosterone. So we ran some labs to figure out where the test was, and it turns out total test for this particular guy, and I'll get to the side effects in just a second, was 1200 nanograms per deciliter. Free testosterone was just above the reference range. Okay, so if you understand the reference range, it was literally above it. So that's technically too high free testosterone. Estradiol was sitting at 35, which is not terrible. Some people would think that's high. Some folks would be fine with that. And that's because in some men, that is too high, and in other men, it's not too high. It depends on how you respond to 35 estradiol. Here were the symptoms. Symptoms were insomnia, full-blown insomnia. I mean, the guy could sleep throughout the night, but at 2 a.m. when he was supposed to be sleeping at 11, he'd be up ruminating about something. And life wasn't necessarily hard at the time. It just couldn't shut his brain off, right? Sitting there trying to go to sleep and like kind of being like wide awake, like just not being able to, fall asleep and get into, that mode. Number two, excessive sweating. Guy was sweating all the time, even in situations where like you really shouldn't have been sweating. Wasn't that hot, no real reason to sweat. Guy's dripping sweat. Obviously not normal. Number three, high blood pressure. High blood pressure, okay? This is not a good thing to have. You don't want, to have a hypertensive crisis. In most cases, you won't really notice how that actually feels, but unless you're measuring, you don't know, where your blood pressure is. But this guy happened to be measuring under my guidance. Number 4, his heart rate had gone up to between 70 and 85 beats per minute when typically it sat around 60. All right, that's, and I don't want to say that's something like everyone should freak out about if your heart rate jumps. I mean, that usually does happen for a variety of reasons for people when they're raising their testosterone, but when it consistently raises a good bit, that might be, something to look at. And then lastly, the last side effect he was having was anxiety, like actual full-blown anxiety. Situations where he wouldn't otherwise have been anxious, his heart would pound and he would get anxious about certain things, like stuff that, normally he has under control, but like suddenly he's being anxious about. Not good, okay? So once we ruled out that it wasn't the nootropics doing this and it was the testosterone, I looked at the numbers, I'm like, there's really no question that it's this. It could be the estradiol creeping up there, but it's more than likely the testosterone. We lowered his testosterone dose. The initial dose that got him, with those sky-high numbers and all of these side effects was 180 milligrams a week. He was running Tescipionate and he was injecting sub-Q into belly fat every day. So I don't know what that is, 27 milligrams or something a day, something to this effect, whatever that ends up being. We reduced it to 140 milligrams, okay? So from 180 a week to 140 milligrams. And that ended up being, I think that was 20 milligrams a day of injectable testosterone. Same administration method, same frequency. All we did was lower the dose. Now we lowered it somewhat substantially because this guy really doesn't have time to wait around while his heart rate is high, his blood pressure is high. He's not feeling good, he's not sleeping, he's like deteriorating in the moment here, and that's just not good, so we decided to make a relatively big jump. Now, what happened was 3 weeks later, okay, so 3 weeks after that dose change, which is really important, I'm going to get to like time frames of what you should look at when you change doses and when to expect effects. The side effects pretty much went away. Okay, so insomnia went away, excessive sweating went away, the high blood pressure went down, which was really important. The heart rate went down and averaged out around 65 beats per minute, when again it had been up to like 75, 80, and before TRT somewhere around 60. So that's acceptable, a 5 beats per minute heart rate increase, totally acceptable. And then the anxiety went away. A couple major points I want to make here. So number 1, yes, high testosterone can definitely come with side effects. I mean, this guy was sitting at 1200 above the reference range on free tests. It was giving him side effects, and he had to lower the dose. In the TRT forums and in men, when they think about testosterone in general, like we're all just like, fucking raise it as high as you goddamn can, get it to supra-physiological levels, and that's where you need to be. True for some men, completely untrue for other men. There's gonna be some guys for whom having that high of a level of testosterone is not good physiologically for them. They're going to feel bad. They're going to have heart rate increases. They're going to have high blood pressure. They're going to sleep like shit. They're going to have anxiety. They're going to have high blood pressure and all these sort of things. And that's important point number 1. Important point number 2 is there are a lot of folks for whom, that would say that these side effects that I just explained are attributable to high estradiol. Now, this guy's estradiol is sitting at 35. Interestingly, after we had lowered the dose to 140 from 180 milligrams per week and all the side effects went away, of course, we retested estradiol and it had actually gone up 2 picograms per milliliter to 37 picograms per milliliter. All right, so I want to let that sit with you for a second. A lot of guys think that the side effects that come with testosterone are usually just estradiol, and in some cases they might be. I'm not one of those guys that's like, you should let your E2 go up to 50, and that's totally fine. Some people it needs to be managed, and for other people it doesn't need to be managed. For some people it's going to give them, anything above 30 is going to give them ED. And for some, it can sit around 45 and they're fine. Everything functions awesome. They feel great. Their libido is great. It's different between people. Do not be dogmatic and do not listen to anyone that's talking about TRT that's fucking dogmatic about it. They haven't worked with enough people, I can guarantee you, or they're just stupid. But it turns out that in this particular case, what a lot of guys would think, is high estradiol symptoms. These were just high testosterone symptoms. The guy's nervous system was overclocked, dude. And he was waking up sweating and not being able to go back to sleep with high blood pressure and high heart rate and anxiety and all these things he definitely wasn't used to and didn't love. Now, erection quality and sex drive was like fine. and good and optimal and strength was optimal, but living with those types of side effects, it makes the dose of TRT that you're at definitely not worth it. When we lowered it, not only did the side effects go away, but the libido was still great, erection quality was still great. All the sex-related stuff, sex hormone-related stuff, or at least, the subjective feels and functions, objective functions, in terms of sexual performance, all of that stuff was fine. Okay? So, look, we all want to strive for having high testosterone, and we like to talk about like test is like the fucking major hormone that makes you a man, and it absolutely is. And you need to have it high, but like your perfect range could be between 800 and 900 nanograms per deciliter. Oh yeah, I didn't even say what this guy's, we ended up retesting once all the side effects went away, and he was at 990 from 1200. Okay, so that's pretty significant, right? That's a significant, reduction in total tests, but he was still perfect and functioning awesomely, but without the side effects, right? Some guys are going to need to be in that range. Some people do awesome at 1500. I've seen guys that function really well, 1500 nanograms per deciliter. That's total test. Not that that's the whole picture. That's just one of our markers. And going below that, things start getting suboptimal. They start having erection issues and libido issues and energy issues and whatever, and they need to be at 1500. I mean, that's kind of rare, but some guys need to be, at that super physiological range. Some guys perform really, really well at like 650 to 700 total test nanograms per deciliter. Hard to believe, but it's actually true. And it's probably related to the fact that those guys, naturally in their bodies, they only really made that amount of tests. Like at their peak, that's how much testosterone they made. It's like, and their body's used to that. You don't need to go above that if you don't have to. And especially if you do and you end up with side effects, well, that tells you kind of need to be back down. But the point is, the sweet spot for testosterone for men, it's totally different, right? And using a cookie cutter strategy or trying to reach a particular number because you heard some YouTubers say like that's a great number or something, not always the best strategy. My personal number is 900. I feel fine at 850 or whatever, but like 900, even 950 I can go up to, then I feel, pretty fucking optimal. Anything above that, I get excessive sweating, my heart rate does change. I'm not sure about blood pressure. Anxiety, probably not so much as being overly aggressive. And for me, I've also figured out that's not estradiol because I'm always managing that as well. It's testosterone. I can't really go above a certain range or, otherwise I don't feel good. And, and that's just true for most folks when using testosterone. Last thing I want to say for those of you that are actually on TRT or, versed in some of this stuff and are changing your protocol. Maybe you have a protocol and it's not particularly perfect and you're wondering, do I go up, do I go down? But importantly, how long should I wait after changing a dose to see where I'm at? What I have seen in my consulting work, which ends up being with a lot of men that are on TRT. I'm consulting men on nootropics and performance and sexual performance and dopamine restoration and hosts of other things. Some of those men end up on TRT. What I have seen is that when you change your protocol, you don't need 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks like a lot of TRT specialists. There's a lot of talking heads on TRT, interestingly, out there. I'm not quite sure the degree of their prowess around actually working with people. I think it's probably overblown or exaggerated to some extent because I work with a lot of men, and what I have found is that between 2 and 4 weeks is really when you can expect to see changes in your protocol. Again, this took 3 weeks in this case of a dose reduction for the side effects to go away, right? That has to do with the esters and the half-life of the particular testosterone, but probably some unknown factors that we don't really understand or know about or whatever. But usually, again, 2 to 4 weeks after an adjustment is when you'll see results, and in some cases sooner, in rarer cases later, but it mostly falls within that group. So when you make a change to your testosterone protocol, if you're on TRT or HCG or both, or Clomid or TRT and Clomid, You know, it's like you probably aren't going to have to wait the whole 8 weeks like a lot of YouTubers will say, and people that are very dogmatic about this template applies to everybody in, you know, relation to testosterone. It's like it's probably going to take you 2 to 4 weeks to see the effects and notice things, and it may even happen sooner than that. Okay, thank you so much for watching, guys. I just wanted to make that point that even though we talk so much about testosterone being great, because it is, and if it's low and you raise it, it will change your life as a guy. You'll build more muscle, you'll lose fat easier, stay lean easier, you will feel and function better, you have a lot of fucking confidence, your junk's gonna work great, you'll have a lot of sex drive. But there's a point at which it gets too high for men, and it comes with side effects, and those side effects are not pleasant to deal with. Don't take anyone's recommendation for what level of testosterone you should have. Instead, focus on dialing in your protocol to get the level of testosterone that you feel and function awesomely with. That should be your goal. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Look, if you want to try Ryan's Natty Protocol, which is an epic testosterone protocol, it is in the testosterone superclass. That is a course that yours truly did. You can find that at livecortex.com. Go support us, you nootropics folks. We have got 2 incredibly strong, highly stimulant-centered nootropic stacks. Number 1, Cortex. If you haven't heard me talk about it, motivation, mental energy, verbal fluency, brain fluidity. Get Cortex at livecortex.com because it will light you up and make productivity a lot easier. But if you want a high-end stimulant that is a nootropic, sure, it's going to make everything process better, but it will light you up perhaps better than most nootropics that are out there. I mean, this is a premium smart drug supplement. Get the Torque nootropic stack. Go buy Torque at livecortex.com. For those of you that haven't tried Torque, please go try it. You support all the free information that we put out on this channel, and you're going to love the stack. It is an exceptionally powerful nootropic stack. The links are in the description below for you to go buy a bottle of either Cortex or Torque literally right now, because if you don't, you're gonna forget. And you should probably get both. Like if you buy a bottle of Torque, it's gonna ask you, hey, do you wanna add Cortex on for like cheaper? It'll give you a discount. Do that so you can try both the stacks. Do it at livecortex.com. If you need my help on dialing in your testosterone protocol, that is one of the things I do. Book a call with me at livecortex.com. If you need my help in helping you to restore dopamine function, right, in response especially to hardcore pharmaceutical stimulants or other things that may have deranged dopamine, book an ongoing consult with me. For those of you that have the budget and you want an expert to work with on formulating your nootropic stacks, helping your sexual function get better, formulating protocols for energy, targeting whatever it is that isn't making you feel and function awesome to the point where you are firing on all cylinders, go book a consult with me. It is the most rewarding and refreshing thing that I do, because I get to take guys from feeling pretty much like shit to fucking feeling awesome, and it makes me really happy. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys. More content to come this week, and I'll talk to you soon.